Well, agriculture is, of course, one of the mainstays of our economy, but farmers have, in fact, for decades been battling with a lack of support, a lack of infrastructure. Roads, of course, is perhaps the biggest problem that we're faced with at the moment, because it seems there has been a marked deterioration in recent years. But there are many other aspects of infrastructure that are impacting the farmers' ability to do their job. Let's get the bottom line on what these challenges mean for the agriculture sector. I'm joined now by agricultural researcher and policy analyst Dr Thulasizwe Mkhabela. Dr Mkhabela, thank you so much for joining us. You've written an interesting article. You point out how vitally important proper rural infrastructure is for farmers, and it's not just roads. You point out that we need packing houses, silos, transport links. We're in a country where even in wealthy cities we don't have proper functioning infrastructure. Paint me a picture of what the infrastructure problem is like in these rural farming communities.
Thank you very much, Sally, and good evening to your listeners. Thank you for this opportunity. I think you've summarized it quite well in saying that it's not just roads that farmers need or the infrastructure that is required in rural areas, but roads of late seem to be at the top of our minds when we think about infrastructure because of the state of our national roads in South Africa of late. The roads have been deteriorating at an alarming rate, and we know that roads are one of those important strategic infrastructure for business to thrive, especially for agriculture in rural areas, because a large amount of the inputs that agriculture or farmers use come from places far away from where they do the operations. So you need good infrastructure in order to transport the inputs to your farm before you start farming. But we equally need the roads to transport the produce out of your farm to the market. They often say that the first mile and the last mile are the most important in agriculture. The last mile being as you get to your farm, the last kilometer that you need there is very important. And also the first mile leaving the farm, because some of the goods, most of them are highly perishable. If the road infrastructure is not good, the goods will be damaged before they get to the market. Hence, I personally believe that roads need more urgent attention. And ironically, we used to have good roads in rural areas, even though there were fewer. But now even those roads that used to function are almost dysfunctional at this stage.
Yeah, it's really got very bad. And your article points to what government did in 2012. They adopted a national infrastructure plan. 800 billion rand was going to be put into helping rural economies. There was also agri-hubs that were set up. I'm just wondering why things have deteriorated then since 2012, when there is clear attempts by government to upgrade infrastructure. What's gone wrong?
I think we need to understand that government itself finds itself in a precarious position. With the best of intentions, it's not easy to implement the plans that they have put in place, and throwing money at the problems, we've learned that it does not really solve the problem. Or it's not all, money is a required precondition, but not the only condition. It's not sufficient just to throw money at a problem. I think what happened with the presidential strategic infrastructure program that you alluded to, which I made mention in my article, is that it came with the best of intentions, but the wheels came off when it came to implementation. You will realize that government plans at national level, but they implement at a local level, provincial, and even further down locally. If the departments and the arms of government that are supposed to be doing the implementation at that cold phase are not functioning the way they should, things will not happen. And what government has tended to do was to plan on behalf of the farmers in this case, or on behalf of the people, what infrastructure they need. And most of the infrastructure often gets placed at places where the farmers, the business people, would not have chosen to have it placed. We have a lot of examples in the country where good infrastructure was never used after it was completed. It became white elephant from the word go. So my contention is that we don't necessarily need to just build or supply the infrastructure. It has to be strategic, like the name of the program had it in its title, that it was Strategic Presidential Infrastructure Program. So for me, you need to put things like silos next to where the farmers, the maize producing or the grain producing farmers are, so that you actually help them to facilitate their business. Because most farmers are good at farming, not necessarily the other parts of the value chain. So you need to take that into cognizance when you're planning and make sure that you bring the right infrastructure at the right place, not what you think the farmers need, but actually the first need on the ground needs to be done. So it has to start with the needs assessment, which involves the end users of the infrastructure that you're planning. And in this case, it will appear that it was top down. It was top down. Even if studies were done, they didn't really involve the people that were going to utilize the infrastructure.
Give me
Hence,
some
the
examples.
Was left,
sorry to jump in, but you were saying that there's some examples of what you call white elephants, where it was just misplaced infrastructure.
Yes.
Give me a couple of examples so I can sort of picture what you're talking about.
There are a number of infrastructure like that, but I'll pick one example that is easy to relate to. In KwaZulu-Natal, many years ago, the government decided they wanted to build an abattoir in a place which is below the red line. The red line is where, according to sanitary and international laws, you're not supposed to move animals or animal products across that red line to be consumed on the other side. And in this case, it was because of foot and mouth. But lo and behold, an abattoir was built in an area that is known to be a foot and mouth area. The abattoir, excuse me, was not completed properly. It has never been used more than 20 years down the line. It's lying idly. It's being vandalized now. A lot of attempts have been made to get that to operate, but none of them have really succeeded. Because when you build an infrastructure like an abattoir, you need to have thought through where the throughput will come from. Are the farmers willing to sell their animals? Will the animals be enough to get the abattoir to run at a commercial level? That's just one example. There are a number of examples that we could actually list. You know, I just thought I'd bring that.
It's such a good example that you've given us, because it shows that the plan was ill-conceived. You know, we always sort of say, oh, we're very good at plans, we're not very good at implementation. What I'm hearing from you is actually we're not very good at plans either, because they weren't properly put together. You know, we're not even going to go into how much of the money was also corrupted and didn't go to the right people, etc., etc. If you look at the situation today regarding rural infrastructure, do you see any signs that the plans being put in place are correct? Or are we in a situation where, you know, that Afrikaans saying, 'n boer maak 'n plan,' a farmer has to make a plan? Are we really looking at a situation where most farmers are pretty much on their own to try and sort the problem out?
I'm afraid I must agree with you that by and large the farmers are on their own. But what makes the situation even sadder than that is that we have got a program in South Africa where we're trying to bring in a new crop of farmers, black farmers that were previously alienated from being farmers, and then we bring them in. You cannot be on your own first day. So government has to create an enabling environment for these new farmers to actually get established in farming, find their footing, pay a bit of the school fees by making mistakes and being bailed out once or twice, so that they can learn and cut their teeth in doing the business. So I think the fact that the farmers are basically on their own is a sad fact, because the majority of new farmers that we're bringing in are doomed to fail from the word go if there is not sufficient support from the beginning.
Yeah, you make an excellent point that farmers who have means, who have sort of perhaps historical backing, it's maybe easier for them to make a plan, but a farmer just starting out needs all the support that they can get, and that sadly at this stage seems quite lacking. Thank you so much for explaining.
I think we must qualify the statement. Even for the established farmer, it is not true that it's easy for them to make a plan. It's easier compared to the new farmers. But I don't want to give the impression that we're saying that white established farmers have all that they need and they don't need support, because we need food security in the country. We need actually the contribution of agriculture to GDP, and you cannot throw away the bathwater with the baby with the bathwater in this case. So they still, even established farmers still need support, but it's worse for those that are new.
Yeah, you make an excellent point. Food security has to be the priority. It's tough for everyone, particularly tough for the new young farmers coming on stream. And of course, crucially important, we get this right because food security is at stake. Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening, agricultural research and policy analyst, Dr Thulasizwe Mkhabela.